Welcome to the Virtual CPA Success Show, where we're 100% focused on helping service-based businesses achieve success. Are you a business owner interested in learning how to scale your business? Has your business reached over $1 million in annual revenue? Then this podcast is for you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's podcast. We are super excited about today's guest because he brings a lot of knowledge. He is the CEO at the Accord Group, and his name is Fabiaan, and he's going to talk to us about a lot of things. But we had a little pre-show here, and the first thing he said that I think is a path I want to start down is Organization Reinvention. So we were talking a little bit about our previous podcasts and how we really talked about the Great Resignation, and he went right down that path. And so I think that's great. So start off with a quick introduction to yourself, and then talk a little bit about what you mean behind those two words, organization reinvention.
Yeah, okay. So I'm Fabiaan. I'm running two businesses. I'm a managing partner from Accord Group, which is a leadership advisory firm focusing on the Belgian market as first priority. And then based on that, we created Valpeo, where we digitalized our intellectual knowledge and trying to build now a new international community. I wrote a book on that thinking, which is a disruption at work, and it gives you an idea of the stages on development. When I say that we're in the stage of organizational reinvention, it means that there has been a time that making your organization more efficient or more adapted to future needs of clients was okay. But today it's about, often we see transformations of business. You need to rethink your business model to adjust to new societal needs, because society has evolved, science has evolved. What makes sense and does no longer make sense in society has evolved and will further evolve. Sustainability is on the agenda now for 5 to 10 years. It wasn't the case in the 80s. It is now. Inclusion will become more important in the coming years, probably. Science has heavily evolved. What you can do today with blockchain, artificial intelligence will have an impact on many business models. The requirements from a net zero perspective will have a tremendous impact, not only on the product or service you offer, but on how you run your business, the ethical standards you apply, because people don't only buy your product, they're also more and more interested in what you believe is of importance. I always say my grandmother was, when she made coffee, it was about, for her, she was concerned by the quality of the beans. Today we buy fair trade because it needs to meet our conviction. So we're influenced by other things than the taste buds. Or it's not only the taste bud that needs to be influenced, other stuff needs to be influenced also.
Sure.
And reinventing yourself is understanding more and more what is and what is going to make more sense into society, and deal with that. If not, you tend to risk to lose your autonomy as an organization, and even get fully disrupted and become irrelevant. Uber did quite some stuff with by redefining the lifestyle, our lifestyle, when we had the need for a cab. Airbnb did it in the hotel industry, simply rethinking of, are we here to maintain real estate, or are we here to give people a place to sleep? The scientific evolution of technology has made that thinking possible. It helped us to bring it in reality and transform it into business models. That is a huge transformation, which wasn't the case 20 or 25 years ago. So many sectors, many industries are under pressure for that reason. Look what happens in the automotive industry. Musk said, I'm going to prove that driving an electric car can be fun also. And that was the beginning of everything. Mm-hmm. And you see where we are today. Nobody was interested. And now everybody is moving into electric cars. So the question is, what is the next thing he's going to invent that will shake up the world?
So like if you're looking at a company that, let's say a service-based company, And, you've seen some turnover. I think like just about all service-based companies have seen turnover, probably more so than what they've ever experienced. And now it's time to reinvent themselves. If you're a consultant for that company, how are you going to approach things, and what are you looking at? What kind of questions are you asking the business owner, the business owners?
How do they relate to their context? And what is their perspective on their context? So it all starts from there. Is if hospitals move into healthcare, it's no longer about maintaining your position in the hospital industry, as I say, but reflecting on your place within a healthcare ecosystem, as an example. So what is your perspective of context? Because if you don't have the right perspective of the right context, you're not looking at the right things. Consequently, understanding who else is moving into that context, and what roles are they going to start playing in that context. The hospitals were there to get you cured when you were sick, but in the meanwhile, pharmaceutical companies sell more probiotica than they sell medicine. There's a new context that has been created, and not getting cured, but not becoming sick. So what are you? In what context are you? That's the first. What is your perspective and your understanding of how that context will evolve? So, and that requires first your initial purpose of your organization, not what do you do, but why do you do what you are doing, and how relevant is that still today? And if that is still relevant, you can improve it. And then is the question: do the people who run your business are at that same level? Are they able to understand the purpose behind what you do, or are they only focusing on what you do? And are they capable of managing that, not only your activity, but that purpose and your ambition you have? Why are you here in society, and what are you trying to create? If that purpose becomes irrelevant, you need to have people who are able to create new mental models of new purposes, which is very complex. Building a new identity, it will take you 5 to 10 years. So you need patience, but you need sure that those who build it are able to cope with that. When you look at C-level people at the C-suite, I've seen a lot who are capable to improve a given context. They come in and they look how they can improve the system. But today that's becoming insufficient. You at least have to sit outside and reflect on how the world will evolve, so you can align yourself with that next future. And the next stage is becoming aware that within that context, you're playing a role that can become absolute for reasons of technology. As I said, the example of Uber and Airbnb is a beautiful example. Mm-hmm. Your role becomes irrelevant when you're not integrated in a new context where technology has taken over. And trying to understand, why did you create what you created? Why were you here? How did society evolve in all its dimensions, from a philosophical perspective, from a political perspective, from a scientific perspective? And what is the new reality that needs to be created? So can you maintain your viability as an autonomous identity? If not, one day you will not longer be on the Fortune 500 list. Huh?
I think a lot of accounting firms, especially in the United States, are going through that identity crisis. What was once a profession that, was mostly, compilations and reviews and audits and tax work, is now becoming more, or I see it becoming more of an advisory firm. Hey, how can we help? How can we help the end user be more profitable? How can we, can we set by side, offer that strategy to them? And I think for a lot of the people that aren't open to that change, aren't open to that vision, are really going to suffer a long time, and I think they'll lose their clients in the process. Because I think clients are looking for that advisory work, versus the the basic compilation stuff.
It's, everything, even if we look at the systems we use, it's everything is integrated. Your invoicing system is integrated with your booking system. There's an automatic link to your bank account, so payments are made automatically.
Yep.
The system keeps you updated if your invoices are paid on time. So you need your bookkeeper becomes a consultant. And then you have stages of consultancy. I can advise you on your P&L, but then I'm focusing on your efficiency, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's still relevant. But if I look at if I'm able to understand your balance sheet and use it to help you reflect on how you are going to use the assets you create to build new businesses, develop new products, develop a new identity, that's another ballgame.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
and I think that a lot of it comes to when we do forecasting with our clients, we do look at the income statement and we roll that forward, but it's important to look at the balance sheet as well, because again, what is the starting point of the balance sheet and what is the future of the balance sheet depending on how we make these changes. So yeah, it is really important to look into both. I do have a question for you. So again, when you're talking about reinventing a company, I'm curious with the companies you work with, how can you tell a difference between a roadblock and a wrong turn, right? So if you've got a company going down this different direction and they're starting to see some pushback on it and maybe not making as much as they thought, like when do you determine that it's a wrong turn versus this is just a roadblock that we have to fight through?
What we experience then when we're in contact with the clients. The roadblock is when you get stuck into your reality, and your belief system takes over, or when you say, I need to move, but you know what, I've seen it all. I don't have the energy anymore to go to the next stage of development.
Mm-hmm.
Roadblock. A wrong turn is when there was not awareness of those patterns of development, and they do just what they believe without understanding the full perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And where they fit in and how do they fit in. So you can start painting their own painting based on your frame of reference, and that's for me a wrong turn. But if you have no desire to paint a new painting, that's a roadblock.
Yeah, no,
and there's nothing wrong with it. But then,
right.
I would say go for the cash then, and put your company up for sale, and try to enjoy the rest of your life in another way. Yeah, if not, you will die with your client.
Mm-hmm. Anybody that works with a lot of owners can see that. You can see when an owner or a company has lost the passion for what they're doing, and I think that's the first sign is okay, why are we doing this? So, if you're not loving what you're doing, then why are we still doing this? And that's a great point. Great. So earlier when we talked as well, so once you got a company reinvented, you talked a lot about interviewing, and I thought it was pretty interesting what you were talking about, and your interviewing style and the interviewing techniques you teach companies sounds pretty different than what a lot of companies are doing. So do you want to go into that a little bit, kind of some of the things you're looking for with in terms of hiring people?
Yeah. So when you redefine your purpose, you need to align people around that purpose. That's for sure. So you need to be sure that at least they are capable to understand the new mental model you try to bring into reality. Strategy is no more than a dream on paper, and depending on who reads it, it can get a different meaning. So what you're trying to paint, those people need to be able to understand that. For that, you need to, first of all, you need to understand how they create a mental model and how many dimensions of the reality they can take into account. So at least they understand what you're trying to say. You give you an example. You can speak with a lot of people about innovation, and after 10 minutes, you will see that for one, it's about inventiveness. For others, it's about improving what is already there, applied innovation. That's how they. So if you need a team that at least is able to understand what you're trying to create. If not, it's not going to be created. But secondly, you need a context of trust. So people can act in an autonomous way and make the best of their full potential. And you need to align them around the value system. So you have to see to it, you can have diversity in the room, but there must be a minimum set of code of conduct, standards, leadership compass, as we often call it, that guides everybody, that sets the limits and the boundaries, that stimulates people, but also defines the boundaries, because you don't develop a purpose on your own. You need to do that with a group of people, so you need to be able to count on each other. So you need a balanced value system. I prefer to talk about cultural diversity rather than culture. Have respect for each and every value system, but at the same time being aware that all these are emotions that come in to play in an organization, and you need to avoid that they take over. At the end of the day, we're here to achieve something, and that's the main goal. So see to it that people understand what it's all about. So understanding how they create a mental model. Then see to it that there's a certain cultural fit. And thirdly, see to it that you have those people with the right behavioral preferences. If you need business developers, you need people who are able to inspire others or have the desire to do so. If you need quality control managers, you have a need or a desire to be somewhat a critical judge. So we look at how people think, what people feel, and what the impact that will have on an organization, and how they like to act. That's the trio of things we look at. So really understanding what that person is all about, and once you have that perspective, you will have a good understanding of the context one fit in, which is a little bit better than simply defining 10 competencies, focusing on those, and then not looking at all the rest that people also bring in. And that will have an impact on their behavior, and by consequence, the interaction with others in your organization.
Mm-hmm. Do you, with the world changing the way it is, and a lot of people being home, and now there's a lot of work from home opportunities. I mean, we've been remote since 2011, so we've been doing this for quite a long time. Would there be any recommendations that you would have for somebody that's kind of thinking about going fully remote for a long period of time versus just the short period of time that they've had to this point?
Yeah, I think you need to focus far more on a context of building a context of trust. We need to understand what people are capable of autonomously. How much can you empower them? Some need structure. And that what I'm telling now is from a productivity perspective. Can you count on them? And do I give them sufficient context when they're at home so they can at least do their job? That's one. But secondly, a lot of people get very energized when they're on their own. A lot of people don't get energized when they're on their own.
Right. Mm-hmm. How do you identify that person that gets energized? I mean, because that's a really a key factor that we found, for those that, because Jamie and I are very outgoing. We enjoy being around people, talking, chatting. But to be honest with you, since we've been remote since 2011, I feel like I get just as much conversation than I would if I was in a brick and mortar, just because I guess it's very intentional. But how do you find people that have that drive or that innate ability to be able to handle that?
Well, you can, these are criteria you can measure. Look at the personality traits, what they value, and you will have an indication of all that. So you need to pay attention on, first of all, are we related on work, or are we related on purpose? And I cannot trust you. That's very important. That's the first stuff. I need to be able to, there needs to be a context of safety and trust. where I can count on you, so you don't have the feeling that I can micromanage. You need to be aware that not everybody likes to work remote. So don't start from what you consider important. Start from what make people tick. And secondly, don't try to connect work with salary. Try to connect purpose, because then you get passionate people. If they find their purpose in what you're trying to achieve with your organization, it's a different game than them saying, you know, I've got work for you and I'm going to pay you for it. You build other type of relationships. So I believe that we're moving in that direction towards where people will have different jobs. The number of freelancers have tremendously increased. Labor contracts will bit by bit become less and less important, unless for those who really need a safety environment, structures, who seek stability and who don't dare to take that risk, because with freelance comes a certain illusion of risk. But the number of freelance is always increasing, because on the pyramid of Maslow, we're all increasing and going to the next stage of development, which is self-actualization and even social actualization, being part of something bigger than ourselves. What is the psychological contract you're building with your people? Not only the labor contract. What is the role you like to play in their lives, and start from there and try to build a scenario around them. So at least what you give in return, you get the contribution to your purpose.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of people maybe fail at is that they take their existing team, and they think, well, their existing team, part of the folks that you'd mentioned are going to work remote. It's just not going to work for them. Then there's going to be those part that would be, but they stop there. And instead of looking at what the company is going to be down the road, or what the future of the company is going to be, well, maybe those folks will eventually find a different place in a different organization versus, with this one, you might have to go to a different direction if the company wants to be remote. But trying to force those people to be there, it's not going to work. And and it's not fair to them. It's not fair to the company. It's not fair to everyone. Yes, I think they have to be aware of that just because their existing team may not be their existing team, 5 years down the road or 4 years down the road, probably won't be.
In a market where talent is scarce and becoming far more scarce, you cannot hire only people that value what you value. And by consequence, you need to get a better understanding of what they value, so you can offer them. So in return, they contribute to what you consider important. It's an exchange of an appreciation of each other's needs and values, which puts you in far more in a participative relation than in a relation of subordination.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, for sure. You mentioned, the importance of purpose, and I know we talked about this in our previous podcast. But one of the things that I listen for in interviews is, okay, how excited is this person about joining Summit? And that's one of the key criteria I'm looking for when I'm interviewing someone. And one of the key ways I look for that is, okay, how much research did they do, and how many questions do they have? And also, obviously, kind of the speed of their voice, and kind of how excited are they about what they're doing. But any other tips to, when I'm in an interview, to look for, okay, is this person really excited about Summit, or are they just looking for their next job?
Well, how do they relate to, first of all, the role? What's in it when they look at the role? What's in it for them when they look at the company? And what's in it for them when they look at what the company is trying to achieve? And how do they relate? So what are their drivers on those different, from those different perspectives? That is important. What is their goals in life? What makes them tick? What gives them energy? What takes away energy? That is what I look for. What is the size of the problem they're trying to solve or they like to solve? Does that fit with the complexity of the role you're going to give them? How do you get them in flow? You need to understand all those motivational drivers and to get them in flow. The culture you put them in, the problems you give them, the purpose you want to go for. They need to find their spot and their place in your organization. If not, you're not creating a second home for them. And that's what you need to do. Because when they find their second home, it's more complicated to move.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's nice. It definitely feels good when you have an entire team on the same page. Like, I love going into those meetings where I'm like, okay, I'm excited to talk to Jody because I know he's excited about what we're doing, and we're going to have a conversation where both of us are very passionate about what's going on. And then everybody knows those employees where you're like, oh, I have to go talk to them. They're really just here. They're here day to day and going through the motions. It's definitely a different conversation to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Great. So we're getting a little close on time here. So I do want to just real quick, and we only have a couple minutes left, but I do want to talk a little bit about your book if you want to talk about that, and then also how people can get hold of you. So do you want to just dive into that real quick, and then we'll say our goodbyes and end the show?
Yeah. So what I described in my book, Disruption at Work, which is available on in Kindle, Amazon, is stages of development of people and organizations. What I try to explain is how people construct realities, how they build a mental model, and how those mental models compete with other mental models, and by consequence, how one model adds more dimensions in their thoughts that allows to create new realities that are not created with the previous mental models. And I've explained those stages and how over time, as I said, in the 1970s, it was about efficiency, in the 80s about products with added value, lifestyle. Today it's about sustainability. What will be next? And it's interesting to understand that. So it helps you, if you don't have big data, it helps you to understand what will evolve, why it evolved in the past, how it will evolve in the future, because everything we do is defined by one thing: the way we feel and the way we think. And the thinking influences the feeling, and the feeling influences thinking. But we create the realities that we are able to construct. If you understand how people construct realities, you will know why those realities has been created in the past and what will be the next reality that will be created in the future. And as we've seen, it becomes always more and more complex. That's why some simply say, you know what, I'm out of here because I don't get it anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
Definitely check that one out. Sounds fascinating. Great. Well, I definitely want to thank both of you guys for joining the show. I thought this was a really good topic. And Jody, any final thoughts from you before we end the podcast?
It's just been a pleasure listening to you speak, and the conversation we've had was very enlightening. Took a ton of notes that that we'll be applying, of course, to ourselves, and then also really just kind of helping others out. So I definitely appreciate the time you spent today.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
It was my pleasure.
All right. Well, thanks again.
Enjoy this podcast? Visit our website at summitcpa.net to get more tips and strategies for achieving business success. We're here to be a resource in this ever-changing industry.